explaining the difference between Azure and Azure DevOps in 2 minutes or less. Most people would start with an Azure subscription and be doing some stuff in there, and then all of a sudden somebody, one of the developers, shows up with an Azure DevOps organization, and you're wondering, where did this come from and why do I need it? Well, technically you don't, but they do make it pretty darn easy to build and deploy software using DevOps principles from something like Azure DevOps. You create an organization in Azure DevOps, and then you add a project, and you see in the tray on the left-hand side a variety of options: boards, repos, pipelines, test plans, and artifacts. Think of these things as steps in your CI/CD process. Every one of these options has options outside of Azure DevOps. Boards, for instance, is something that you can find in something like Jira or Trello. Repos, you can do something like GitHub. Instead of pipelines, you can use something like Jenkins. Instead of test plans, you can use Selenium. And instead of artifacts, you can use something like JFrog Artifactory. Boards gives us a way to organize and plan our work so that we know what needs to be done, and the product owner can see what the priority and what the status of things are. Azure DevOps Repos gives you an online place to store your code. This can be important if you have a large code base or if you have a large remote workforce. Pipelines is used to stitch your build and deploy process together. As in any build and deploy process, there are a number of steps. You use pipelines to automate those steps. You can use Azure DevOps test plans to automate your testing cycle. This allows you to continuously integrate, and if you're brave, continuously deploy. Azure DevOps Artifacts give you a place online to manage any of the artifacts of your build process, including images, libraries, and other parts of the build process that might be scattered. This gives you a place to centralize that, tag it, and manage it. And finally, do I need both of these things? Do I need both Azure and Azure DevOps? Well, as always, the answer is it depends. It depends on what you're trying to do. Let's say, for instance, that you had a particularly large test that you had to run that required a lot of compute resources. You might need to integrate a VM with your Azure DevOps pipeline. Well, you can do that. You can link those two accounts together and have a place, a scalable compute place where you can deploy as large a build and deployment process as you need to create. And of course, don't forget to check out the Azure DevOps Marketplace and the Azure Marketplace for a variety of tools and connectors and things that you can use to speed and automate your build and deployment process. So there you go, the difference between Azure and Azure DevOps in less than 2 minutes. Like, share, subscribe to the video, and we'll see you at the Houston DevOps Meetup.